I made Chelsey read a weird book.
She did. It was weird. Okay, so the book she's talking about is Consumed by David Cronenberg. Now, the background on this is that she has a weird obsession with David Cronenberg.
I don't know. I first encountered David Cronenberg when we were at university. He is like one of the only really, really, really well-known Canadian directors because he invented a genre of horror. Body horror.
Yep.
Which is as awful
which is as awful
as it sounds, but it's really it's such a hard thing to deal with because it's really, really smart, but it's really, really gross.
Yes.
Because like all the stuff they're dealing with is like really intense, like.
And I remember when I did a horror class in university, and they're talking about, oh, it's so much fun, the abject, and just the idea of something being outside of you is like, I don't know, no longer a part of you. Like, okay, the way that my professor described it to me is this. Okay, you have a jar in front of you, and you spit in it, and you keep spitting in it, and you keep spitting in it, and then you look at it. Now, would you drink that? No, that's gross, that's disgusting. But it's not. It's the stuff that's in your mouth. It crosses a line when it leaves your body. And that is kind of like what body horror is just like the ways in which your body can gross you out. It's so easy and weird to do.
Earlier this year, I read Cronenberg on Cronenberg, aka his memoir. And the reason I read this memoir was I went to a Cronenberg book launch / signing because it was up on the chapter's book website. And I thought, hey, this is a name I recognize. Let's go to this. I would get my copy of Consumed. I would meet David Cronenberg. And I'll read the book eventually. But this guy, like, he is really, really interesting to listen to. Like, during the interview, I was just, like, hanging off of every word. Because, you know, when someone's really smart, but they're not condescending about it? That was David Cronenberg. So I read his memoir, and then eventually, when I felt ready, because I have seen some of this man's movies, and they do things to you, I thought, okay, one day I just picked up Consumed, and I did it. I finished it, and I was like, hey, Chelsey!
No, she texted me the entire time.
Well, everybody knows that I text you when I read weird shit. But, hey, Chelsey, guess what? You're going to read this, too, so I have someone to talk to about it.
And so I was like, okay, sure, I'll read this. I'll totally read this. Just give it to me and I'll read it. Totally read it. And so I was in the midst of reading Maureen Johnson's The Shadow Cabinet, and I had read enough of it that I was not going to be able to get through my day with this book. I was going to finish it about halfway through my day, and then I'd have nothing left to read. So then began my morning hunt as I'm like late for the bus for a book that will not only interest me, but also fit in my purse, because my purse has only a finite amount of space. And I'm like, oh look, there's that Andrew Piper book that she lent me. Picked it up, put it in my purse. And I got like, I finished my book, picked it up, and I'm like, this is not Andrew Piper. And yeah, so then I was stuck reading it, otherwise I was going to be staring out the walls or creepy people in the subway.
So this book is what I would either call literary horror or literary sci-fi. Kind of like...
It's a weird...
between the two.
It's a thing. It's a weird thing.
And we are following two characters. They are in a relationship. Their names are Naomi and, what's the name?
Nathan.
Naomi and Nathan. And they are both, like, love technology. They're both photographers and they love technology.
Everything. They've got, like, nests of technology. They've got, like, 3 phones, an iPad, 2 different computers.
Cameras, different lenses. And the thing is, the first thing I noticed is every piece of tech is labeled by name and model number. So you'll be reading this book and you could pull up your computer and you could type in the model number of the Canon camera that Naomi's using.
Nikon.
She's Nikon. You can pull up their models and you can look at them and you can buy them. That was really weird.
Yeah. And, like, he, in great detail, describes, like, how they're taking their shots and what aperture they use and why and what they're thinking as they're changing the settings, and then what they're thinking when they, like, take these shots. And it's not about what they're taking pictures of anymore, because you can't even see it. It's about them doing these things.
So you're getting this really weird perspective where like, it's so focused on the technology and about, like, setting the scene that, like, your subject matter, as you said, isn't important anymore. And it's just, it's, like, kind of like the whole male gaze thing kind of deal. Like,
Yeah, and, well, the interesting thing, too, and he actually, like, says this at one point in the book, is that their tech is mediating how they see their environment. Like, at one point, Nathan is witnessing this crazy, weird, disturbing scene where this girl is, like, taking nail clippers, cutting pieces of her skin off, putting it on a plate, like a little child's plate, and then eating it. And he's just there, like, ooh, taking pictures. Ooh, look at this, look at her scars. And
this is also at the very beginning of the novel, because when you're first introduced to Nathan, he is witnessing, like, this really kind of underground seedy surgery that this woman has gone to this other country because it's illegal where she's from, and just,
yeah,
so cool but so messed up.
Yeah, so he's, like, taking these, like, pictures, and he's like, and it's only until, like, after when he, like, leaves and he's looking through this picture that he's like, oh, I just experienced that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess that's how I experienced it, because now I have these photos. And it's just, like, how we see our world is so mediated by, like, what's on our screen.
We're so disconnected.
Exactly.
And the book is called Consumed, and so there's a lot of, he knows how to work a theme. Like, I was just so disturbed with how well put together this book is. Because you have consumer culture. You have how technology consumes you. You have how you consume technology. How relationships like, just all the different, like...
Like, take every incarnation of how you can apply this word. It is in there somewhere.
And it's not like you're being slapped in the face with a dead fish. And that's what drove me crazy. Because it's just so, like...
Because he takes it, like, on every level. Like,
it's...
There's an essay in there. There's multiple essays in there.
And now I'm really, really sad. Because... when David Cronenberg, when he was talking, he's like, oh, I originally wanted to be a writer, and then I got distracted by film. And I'm looking at this book, and I'm just like, you are so good at this. Imagine if you had been a writer. Like, imagine what I would have done to myself.
The body of work that this man could have created, that we could have had in an alternate universe.
And I mean, like, the body of film work that he's done... Yeah, I just did that. Is also pretty fantastic, because a lot of the stuff he did is, as much as it terrified the crap out of me, I can appreciate and respect it. But I think his vision translates better to text, because when you're watching it on screen, it's really in your face when you're kind of disconnected via text. Like, in the text. Like, you're not kind of... He'll be talking about, like, crazy, like, weird... stuff in the book, and you're like, okay, I can get into this. When you're watching it on screen, you're distracted by it, and you don't really see the message until you actually sit down and think about it.
Well, yeah, because it's kind of like that idea of continuity editing, where you're not supposed to notice the editing, right? And obviously people do, but it's a lot harder to focus on because it's meant to be invisible.
So this story is interesting.
It does not go where you think it's
It does not go where you think it goes. We have this couple who they're kind of together, long distance relationship, kind of like they're both journalists, different types of journalists. And Nathan goes to record this surgery, and he ends up sleeping with the lady and getting an STD.
And it's this weird random STD that apparently hasn't existed for a long, long time. So he's like, oh, this is crazy. I think I'm going to do a story about this. I don't know why. And off he goes to go find the doctor who discovered it, who's the disease is named after. It's called, like, Roif. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyways, he's in Toronto.
Yeah, so now we're in Toronto, which is like our home.
Weird.
I know, right? It's great.
It makes it so much more personal.
I know.
In my head, because all books take place in the U.S., the U.S. is not a place, it is a fantasy land where things happen. So, for something to be set in Toronto...
It's so much more close to home,
It
right?
blows your mind. You're like, no, but this didn't happen in Toronto. And it just takes your, like, level of disbelief and just messes with it. You can't suspend your disbelief as easy.
So another thing in Consumed is it looks at boundaries. So we have the boundaries between people, the boundaries between people and their stories. So Nathan is starting to like blur those boundaries between like his life and his work, like his personal life and his work. He's just like sticking himself into these things. Literally.
He's just screwing his work.
And this is the same for Naomi, because Naomi sees what Nathan is doing, and Nathan infected her, and so now she's infected, and now she's mad, so she's just like, okay, I'm gonna go and follow this lead, because the story she was working on started in France, and there was this really kind of famous philosophical couple. They're both professors at this university, and they're known to, like, do a lot of crazy stuff. Like, they were sleeping with their students and everything, and it's just, like, this big crazy thing. And so she's trying to track them down because the woman, the wife, was found half-eaten in her apartment. And the husband hightailed it to Japan.
No, he was actually in Japan
at the time. Right.
So... they're kind of like, oh, did he do it? But he won't come back home to, like, you know, talk about this. So maybe he's guilty, maybe he's not. So anyways, she's like, well, I'm following the story. Let's do it.
Let's go to Japan. Let's meet this guy. Let's get myself involved. Let's
sleep with this guy.
Let's sleep with this guy.
And might eat me, but, you know, I'm going to do it anyways.
And then, of course, everything, it turns out there's, like, a big crazy thing going on where all these are interrelated, and just...
Shit goes down.
And I really...
And North Korea
gets North Korea's involved. And, like, we're gonna just leave that at that, because you should read it to find out exactly how it's... You're sitting there and you have an idea of how come North Korea is involved in this really weird kind of body horror, literary sci-fi Nabokov meets Philip K. Dick book. But you're totally in left field. It's not what you think it's going to be.
So weird.
It's so weird. But the question is, Chelsey, did you like it?
I think so. I think I liked it. I think I really want to know what the essay is under there, and it would take a second reading, because I just kind of read it and was like, oh, okay, I see things that keep popping up, but I didn't have a chance to, like, connect them in my brain. So I would have to read it again, and I really wish I had, like, a professor to, like, talk to about this. I need somebody with more knowledge than me to, like...
explain the thing.
Yes. I hate that I'm so dependent.
I liked it. I thought that it was, like, it was probably one of the best written things I had read in a while, and that kind of, like, as I said before, hurt me a little bit, because it was just... so well written, and I'm not saying that I didn't expect this from him. I'm just saying that it was so well written. Why haven't you written more, buddy?
Well, he's retiring from film, so there you go.
Yeah, so you know what? David Cronenberg, please write more books. I am asking you.
If you're gonna set them in Toronto, give me a heads up. I can't deal. Anyways, so have you read Consumed? Have you read anything that sounds as weird and crazy and strange and wonderful as this book? And if so, pass it over here.
Yeah, and if you have read Consumed, what were, like, the things you picked up in this book? Like, the themes and the symbols and the just all-round insanity that was this book that managed to do in, like, 200 pages.
It was really short.
It was really short.
Okay. Anyways, bye guys.